OpenAI just killed their biggest product launch since ChatGPT. Sora, their AI video generator, the thing that was supposed to change how the entire world creates video content, is dead after just 6 months. Not 6 years, not 6 quarters, 6 months. The Wall Street Journal just published their investigation into what actually happened behind the scenes over there, and the numbers are so bad, they almost sound made up. At its peak, Sora was burning through $1 million a day just in computing cost. So you'd think, okay, it must be bringing in some serious revenue to justify that kind of spending, right? Well, the total revenue from Sora over its entire existence, from the day it launched to the day they pulled the plug, was $2.1 million. The total lifetime earnings from this product wouldn't even cover 2 days of running it. Now, Sam Altman compared the Sora launch to the original ChatGPT moment. He genuinely believed this was going to be lightning in a bottle all over again. Instead, it turned out to be one of the most expensive product failures in tech history. And the full story of how this all went sideways is honestly so much worse than even those numbers suggest. So let's get into it. Okay, so to really appreciate the scale of this disaster, first you have to understand what OpenAI thought they were building here. Because this wasn't just some side experiment that they threw together over a weekend. This was supposed to be their next big thing. It all started back in February 2024. OpenAI gave the world its first look at Sora with these amazing demo clips that genuinely blew people away. We're talking about woolly mammoths walking through the snow, cinematic street scenes in Tokyo, and these gorgeous dreamlike landscapes that looked like they came straight out of a Miyazaki film. Hollywood actually flinched when they saw this stuff. Tyler Perry, the filmmaker, publicly said he was putting an $800 million studio expansion on hold because of what he thought Sora would be able to do. That's how seriously people were taking this. Now fast forward to September 2025. OpenAI launches the standalone Sora app, the second generation of the model, with better motion, better audio, the whole package. It hit number 1 in the App Store within days. It pulled in over 100,000 downloads on day 1 and crossed 1 million downloads in less than a week. According to app figures, those numbers were actually faster than the growth that ChatGPT had in its early days. So on paper, this looked like a rocket ship. But OpenAI wasn't building a video tool. They were trying to build a social media platform. If you look at how Sora was designed, multiple outlets, including Wired, pointed out that the whole thing was basically a TikTok clone for AI-generated videos. Vertical video feed, user-generated content, social sharing features, it had the works. The idea was to capture all the consumer attention and then maybe build an advertising business somewhere down the road, basically create this new category of entertainment where all the content is pretty much AI slop. Then, in December 2025, they landed what seemed to be the deal of a lifetime. Disney announces a $1 billion partnership with OpenAI. Over 200 Disney characters were licensed for use in Sora, from Mickey Mouse to Spider-Man. Bob Iger, who was still running Disney at the time, goes on CNBC and talks about how this gives Disney a chance to participate in the rapid growth of AI. There were reportedly even plans for Disney executives to get special tools so they could storyboard live-action remakes using Sora. Disney Plus was going to feature curated Sora-generated content. So that was the vision. This was going to be a world-changing, creative platform, a TikTok killer, Hollywood's new best friend, all validated by the most powerful entertainment company on earth writing a $1 billion check. That was their sales pitch anyways. Now let's talk about what actually happened, because the gap between the vision we just described and the reality that took place is actually shocking. This is where it starts to get really ugly for OpenAI. Now, the fundamental problem with Sora is that generating video with AI is absurdly expensive compared to generating text. When you ask ChatGPT a question, that's a relatively cheap operation in terms of computing power. But when you ask Sora to make a 10-second video, the system has to render hundreds of individual frames. It has to figure out how the motion works, how the lighting behaves, how the physics play out, and keep everything visually consistent across the entire clip. A Cantor Fitzgerald analyst actually broke down the math on this. And according to his estimates, each 10-second Sora clip cost about $1.30 to generate and required roughly 40 minutes of parallel processing across 4 GPUs. Now, $1.30 per clip might not sound catastrophic on its own, But when you scale that up to millions of users all generating multiple videos throughout the day, the bill goes through the roof. Wall Street Journal's investigation found that Sora was losing roughly $1 million every single day. Some estimates were even worse than that. Forbes and Cantor Fitzgerald peg the peak inference cost at around $15 million per day, which annualizes out to roughly $5.4 billion per year just to keep Sora running. Now compare that to what Sora was actually bringing in. According to App Figures, the mobile intelligence firm that tracks this stuff, Sora's total in-app purchase revenue across its entire life, from launch to shutdown, was just $2.1 million total across the entire lifetime of Sora. That's everything they ever earned. Now, Bill Peebles, who was literally the head of Sora at OpenAI, said publicly on social media back in 2025 that the economics were, and I quote, completely unsustainable. So the guy who was running the product told the world and his company that it couldn't work financially, and they just kept going for 5 more months anyways. I mean, go figure, right? Now, here's the other thing that was happening. Every GPU that was busy rendering some random person's video of their cat surfing was a GPU that was not running ChatGPT queries or powering OpenAI's coding tools. These are the products that actually generate real revenue. Fidji Simo, who runs applications at OpenAI, reportedly told employees that the company needed to stop chasing what she called side quests, which is a pretty brutal thing to say about a product you launched 6 months ago as your next big thing. The usage numbers tell the same story as the consumer side. Sora peaked at about 1 million active users, according to data cited in the Wall Street Journal investigation, and then collapsed to under 500,000. Downloads went from 3.3 million in November 2025 down to about 1.1 million by February 2026. That's a 60% drop in 3 months. People tried it, they made a few weird videos, then they lost interest and left. 30-day retention reportedly fell to single digits. Now, remember that $1 billion Disney deal we mentioned earlier? The one that was supposed to validate everything? According to the Wall Street Journal, Disney found out that Sora was being killed less than an hour before the public announcement. One report from Implicator said Disney learned the news just 30 minutes after finishing a joint working session with the OpenAI team. Nobody had called them, no one gave them a heads up. They found out essentially at the same time as you and I did. No money ever changed hands. The $1 billion investment, the character licensing, all of it, gone. Disney is now reportedly talking to over a dozen other AI partners because the one they bet on just evaporated before their eyes. Now, for context on how deep the financial hole goes over at OpenAI more broadly, in the first half of 2025 alone, the company posted a net loss of $13.5 billion on just $4.3 billion in revenue. Then, in quarter 3 of 2025, an estimated $11 to $12 billion lost in that single quarter. The Wall Street Journal has reported that losses are projected to balloon to $40 billion by 2027, with profitability not expected until 2029 or 2030 at the earliest. Fortune obtained internal financial documents showing projected operating losses of $74 billion in 2028 alone. These are numbers that are almost impossible to comprehend, and Sora was just pouring more gasoline on the OpenAI bonfire. So the money side was a total disaster, but the way the public actually used Sora might be the funniest part of this whole story. Because it turns out when you give the internet a powerful AI video generator with almost no guardrails, they don't use it to make beautiful art. They use it to troll. Within days of Sora 2 launching, the platform was absolutely flooded with AI-generated videos of copyrighted characters doing all sorts of things that would make Disney's lawyers lose their minds. From SpongeBob to Pikachu to Dragon Ball Z characters, all of these guys were getting remixed into all types of bizarre scenarios. The gaming site Kotaku described users as basically ripping off anime on an industrial scale. The copyright situation was made worse by how OpenAI set up the content policies. Sora generated copyright material by default unless rights holders actively contacted OpenAI and asked them to stop. So the burden was on Disney, Nintendo, and every other studio and creator in the world to go chase down OpenAI and say, hey, please stop using our stuff. Japan's Content Overseas Distribution Association, which represents studios like Studio Ghibli and Square Enix, formally demanded that OpenAI cease using their copyrighted content. But the copyright mess was almost quaint compared to the deepfake situation. People immediately started generating realistic videos of people, including dead people. Zelda Williams, Robin Williams' daughter, had to publicly beg people to stop sending her AI-generated videos of her father. George Carlin's family spoke out about hurtful AI videos of him as well. Various celebrity estates threatened legal action. Bryan Cranston got involved after unauthorized clips using his voice and likeness appeared on the platform, which led to a formal statement between him, United Talent Agency, and the Association of Talent Agents demanding stronger protections. OpenAI also had to crack down on AI creations of Michael Jackson, Martin Luther King Jr., and Mr. Rogers doing, as NPR put it, outlandish things. But only after families and unions raised hell about it. The platform had a watermark system that was supposed to prevent misuse, but third-party tools to remove those watermarks popped up within a week of launch. But on a personal level, the best part was really the hilarious videos that were made of Sam Altman. Maybe the only useful thing to come out of Sora 2. Now, polling showed that about 2 out of 3 Americans flat out disapproved of AI-generated video. People could spot it, they didn't trust it, and they didn't like it. A survey of 3,000 US adults by Raptive found that consumer trust drops about 50% the moment people perceive content as AI-generated, regardless of whether it actually is or not. That's a marketing problem you can't fix with a better ad campaign. That's a fundamental rejection of product category. This tracks with what we're seeing on YouTube as well, which is probably the most relevant platform when it comes to where AI video content would theoretically live. YouTube CEO Neil Mohan literally put managing AI slop on his priority list for 2026. The platform wiped out 4.7 billion views from AI slop channels. They've been terminating channels, demonetizing creators, downranking content that looks mass-produced or machine-made. Over 200 advocacy groups, including the American Federation of Teachers, just sent YouTube a letter demanding they ban AI-generated content from YouTube Kids entirely. This is the environment that Sora launched into, a world that is actively rejecting the exact product OpenAI was trying to sell. Oh, and one more thing I have to mention because the timing is too perfect. The day before OpenAI announced they were killing Sora, they published a blog titled Creating with Sora Safely, about how they were making the app safer for teenagers. Yes, the literal day before they killed it. You cannot make this stuff up. So let's talk about what this actually means, because Sora is more than just a funny story about a product that flopped. It's a window into how OpenAI operates as a company, and what we're seeing through that window should genuinely concern anyone who's paying attention. OpenAI deliberately ran Sora as a money-losing operation. They knew the economics didn't work, their own team lead said so publicly, and they launched it anyway. They burned through hundreds of millions of dollars, dragged Disney into a $1 billion deal that was dead on arrival, and then pulled the plug the second it became inconvenient for their IPO preparations. They completely miscalculated the market. They thought people would fall in love with AI-generated video the same way they fell in love with ChatGPT. And the public basically said, no thanks, this is garbage, we don't want it, we can tell it's fake, and by the way, please stop making deepfakes of our dead relatives. Now, here's what scares me. This is exactly what OpenAI is doing at the company level. The whole operation is a scaled-up version of Sora. They're running the entire company into the ground, losing tens of billions of dollars per year, with a vague promise that somehow, years from now, it will all work out. This is a major trust me bro company. $13.5 billion was lost in the first half of 2025. Another $12 billion in Q3 alone. Projected $40 billion losses by 2027. They don't expect to turn a profit until the end of the decade, if then. The theory is the same one that powered Sora. Spend insane amounts of money now, figure out the business model later, trust us, it'll all come together eventually. Except we just watched that exact theory play out in real time with a real product, and it failed spectacularly in 6 months. This is a company that keeps announcing massive deals that don't materialize. They stood on stage with Jensen Huang in September 2025 and unveiled a $100 billion NVIDIA partnership. The Wall Street Journal later reported that Huang was privately criticizing OpenAI's lack of business discipline. That deal quietly shrunk to $30 billion after months of going nowhere. Then the Disney deal, $1 billion, 200 characters, all the fanfare in the world, dead in 3 months, with Disney finding out less than an hour before the rest of us. Massive announcement, headline everywhere, then silence, then collapse. That's the pattern. The announcements are the product. The hype is the business model. Which brings us to what's coming next. OpenAI is reportedly targeting a Q4 2026 IPO, with the S1 filing expected sometime in Q3. That's just months away. They need the hype machine running at maximum power to justify asking public market investors to buy into a company valued at close to $1 trillion that won't be profitable for half a decade. So I promise you, we are going to see more billion-dollar partnership announcements between now and that filing date. There will be more splashy headlines, more breathless coverage about how OpenAI is going to change everything. Because at this point, that's the only play they have left. Generate excitement, keep the valuation inflated, get to the IPO before anyone looks too closely at the actual books. Sora was the test case for this whole approach, and it crashed in 6 months. It's a joke. It's a dumpster fire. The company is being run by people who thought $1 million a day slop machine that made $2 million total was a good idea, and now they want you to trust them with $1 trillion valuation. Now, this is my prediction. Watch what happens this year. Watch the desperate announcements pile up as the IPO window gets closer. Watch the partnerships that sound incredible on day one and quietly evaporate a few months later. OpenAI is going to crater eventually, and the Sora debacle was just the appetizer. Now, I want to hear from you on this. Drop a comment and tell me where you think OpenAI is going to be by the end of this year and why. Do you think they pull off this $1 trillion IPO? Do you think investors actually go for it? Or do you think the whole thing starts to unravel? Let's discuss below in the comments. I try and reply to every single one of them. If you're not subscribed to the Fat Cat Report yet, now is the time. We have a ton of interesting content planned for this month, including several shocking exposés on AI companies and the grifters who run them. If you've had enough of the fake hype economy where everything is an over-exaggerated scam, then this channel is the place for you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.